was I was involved in my first prayer circle.
First evangelical prayer circle.
First
Right?
evangelical prayer circle, yeah.
Or at least Christian prayer circle, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so I was unaware of that it was going to happen. It was a surprise sort of jump in.
No one telegraphed it to you. It just kind of started happening.
But before I knew it, I was on my knees, and the pastor put her hands on my chest.
Uh-huh.
So do I?
All of a sudden, your personal bubble is being invaded.
And everyone started holding hands around me, and I go, "Oh my, am I going to get touched by everybody?" So I was like, I don't know.
This is Crossing Phase, the podcast featuring a Christian and a Muslim talking religion and politics. What could possibly go wrong? Your co-hosts for this adventure are me, Matt Hawkins, a once policy director for the Southern Baptist Convention, and my New York Muslim friend, the multi-talented John Pinna. Show notes, bios, and all our social media links are available at crossingphase.com.
This is the first episode of a pilot season, which, as far as we can tell, it's the only podcast co-hosted by an American evangelical and an American Muslim. We intend to lend our commentary to religious headlines across the globe and share our own multi-faith experiences. Some good, some bad, some ugly, some funny. John Pinna, welcome to our first episode.
Thank you for having me. It's nice for us to be sitting and chatting with each other officially.
Officially, we've been talking about this idea for many months, maybe a year or more, haven't we? Trying to get in front of the microphone, and this is finally the day.
Yeah, these are the birthed from conversations that we've had over the course of our 10-year professional history, where we've I've called you on a bunch of things to see what does where does this sit with the evangelical community, and you've pinged me on the reverse.
Right.
So we felt that there might be a compelling argument for us to share our conversations with others.
Yeah, I agree. And we can talk about the conversations, or I think we can just get into it and start having these conversations. And I know I've enjoyed learning more about American Muslims in particular from you and your graciousness in fielding my North American white boy questions endlessly. And so I look forward to more of that. And maybe our conversations will be of value to listeners.
So we've been friends now together and colleagues for 10 years, and you and I admittedly have never asked you to come to the masjid with me, or mosque.
Yeah.
And you moved to Tennessee some time ago, a couple of years ago. So you had your first mosque experience.
I did. I'm kind of surprised and frankly a little embarrassed that I didn't visit a mosque while up in the D.C. area. But I did in Nashville recently. It was following. It was in the week or so following the New Zealand mosque attack, which was naturally a horrific tragedy. But an evangelical pastor friend of mine and I and some Jewish folks from a couple of the Nashville synagogues gathered and went to a mosque in downtown Nashville and gathered with them for prayers, and they were open and invited us in, and it was a pretty fascinating experience. I had not done that before, and it was enlightening, and it was interesting to watch. It was a very diverse gathering, but I think this is some of the stuff you and I want to talk about.
Let's hear about you. You were mentioning because it's.
I had a little bit of an awkward moment, and I think the value of this podcast is going to be teasing out awkward moments in multi-faith interaction, and I certainly had mine. So I learned a bit less of a lesson, and I also learned a little bit of from you, a little bit of a theological debate between Islamic traditions. And so it was approaching the time when the service was about to begin, and I realized that I should probably go use the restroom before it got too long, and I didn't want to interrupt. Didn't want to go have to excuse myself in the middle of the prayer service, and so I went back out into the lobby, keeping in mind in that context I had already taken my shoes off. And so I entered the restroom, and again, evangelical American, first time in a mosque, all of a sudden not sure what to do because I recognize I have my shoes off for entry into the Islamic Center, but then I'm entering the restroom where also the neighborhood, many of the neighborhood men were doing the ritual cleansing, and where there are also stalls around. And so I'm all of a sudden torn because I don't know whether to go back out and put my shoes on to go use the restroom.
Right.
Or the option I ultimately chose was to put on one of the pair of the flip-flops that were at the door and then go use the restroom.
Right. So
and
generally...
then wash my hands. And so all I have to say, I obviously should have just asked someone and pleaded ignorance about what my protocol should have been. But it's reflective of our conversation and relationship. And you were gracious enough to lend me insight into that predicament.
And then, and just for people to know that, so you go into a masjid or mosque before you go to the masala, which is where the prayers are conducted, and where the khutbah is, where the imam will give his speech, which is the khutbah is like a homily. I don't know. What do you guys call them? I know in Catholicism they call it a homily. What do you?
Yeah.
What do you guys call it?
Most of the time it's sermons, but we have a homily that tends to be. Homilies tend to be just shorter sermons. They're a little more devotional in nature. Maybe 10 to 15 minutes versus 30 minutes or more for a sermon. But there are no hard lines around it.
So the mosque is a structure, or the masjid is the structure, and then the masala is where the carpet that you step onto, you take your shoes off and step onto it, and that's the prayer area, and then the khutbah is the sermon that the imam will give. And so you're supposed to do ablution, which is called wudu or wazu, depending on where you're from. Wudu is the ritual of washing hands, face, and feet, and certain parts of the body, so that you're all as a ritualistic cleaning. Just like when I know that the Catholic priests will do that when they will rub their hands with oils and so forth. So so you did you do wudu? Did you do wazu? Did you do the ablution? Did anybody show you how to do that?
No one showed me how to do that. No.
Okay, so
no, we were just kind of in the background.
Sure. Yeah, so there's that, and I mean, before you step into the masala, you're supposed to have that done, right? So, and then you don't have to if you're obviously not Muslim, and there's no really hard fast rules. Although maybe some of my colleagues would suggest that there should be hard fast rules.
Sure.
And then you went to the bathroom. And then there's usually what's called chapel or flip-flops that you can put on so that you don't ruin your ablution, right? So you can walk on the floor. And the controversial part from our conversation was I feel really funny doing wudu in the bathroom. Although a lot of my colleagues, and my fellow members, Muslim members, whether they're Sunni or Shia, will say, "Oh, it's no problem because in the bathroom you have stalls, and so there's no commingling of any kind of dirtiness between it being a bathroom and it being and you're trying to do ablution." Now, if you go, I was just in Istanbul during Ramadan, and of course there's a special sort of faucet spouts where you do your wudu, and it's not a bathroom, it's outside, and you ritualistically wash, and then you go into the mosque, the masjid.
Yeah.
And in America,
it seems like a far more streamlined and clear process to me.
Right, and so I always felt funny that we're doing this ablution. But we're doing it in a bathroom, and I certainly can smell what's going on.
Sure.
So the stalls don't preclude. There's no barrier. So I always felt funny about it, and I just had this conversation with my friend at the Adams Center in Sterling, Virginia, and I said, well, why can't we just have a section to just do it outside? And so there's people like me who will do wudu before we go to the masjid, And so it still counts as long as we don't go to the bathroom or do something that makes us unpack. What pak is the term for cleanliness. So and then you just take off your shoes and you go in. But I go through the same thing, and usually my problem is that I'll go to the bathroom and then there won't be chapel that's my size. It's all for kids or something. So like I just gotta.
The ones I had to use were fairly small too. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to put like a toe in and then balance your way through.
Just kind of sliding through.
Yeah, and and if anybody's ever washed themselves in a bathroom after a being on a long trip or being traveling, it's not easy to take off your shoes and socks, and the tile floor is hot lava, so you got to be careful to balance things while you're doing everything. So, but a lot of masjids have an area to conduct wudu downstairs or in an area that is clean, that's not a bathroom. But like I said, personally, and this is a personal preference, there's no hard, fast rules, which is why people say you can do it in a bathroom. And I go, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but I just don't feel that that's right. And that doesn't mean that, just like no two Christians are the same, no two Muslims are the same in how they interpret their stuff. Yeah. So, so you toughed it out.
I toughed it out. I got through it, and it was a fascinating experience, and but one I definitely had to tell you about. and you too recently had your own awkward multi-faith experience in a more civic, kind of in a more civic capacity or more civic event. So I want you to tell listeners about that.
You want to know before we get into that, I'll tell you what my struggle was. Centered around the New Zealand occurrence. I went to the Jummah prayer, which is the Friday prayer. Friday is Sunday for Muslims, right? And that's your go to church day. And so I'm sitting at the Adams Center, and my struggle was I'd done wudu, and I'd taken off my shoes, went in, and sat down and listened to the khutbah. And I, of course, was very thoughtful. Imam Majid, who's the imam for the Adams Center, was very thoughtful in his comments, and you can look at them online. But my problem is that the guy in front of me, his shoes were off, and he had 4 or 5 Band-Aids on those shoes, and I go, what's going on here? And it was such a big distraction because keep the sock on, buddy. I was really nervous, and it kept distracting me. And of course, I was telling some of my friends that were afterwards, they go, "You should have been concentrating on the foot and not the foot." And I go, it was staring at me, and I got it totally distracted me from the whole situation. So there just needs. I mean, do we need to put signage up that says if you have something on your foot, wear the sock. 2 is if you have a wound and there's a comedian called Sebastian Mascalano, and he is a Malascaco, I think his name is, and I'm mispronouncing it, who talks about how he's got this whole thing about people wearing Band-Aids in the pool. And how you got to drain the pool. He does a whole bit on that, and I just kept thinking of his bit, going, "This is if you have 4 or 5 Band-Aids on your foot, you need medical attention. You got to that used to be gone." So that totally distracted me from the khutbah on New Zealand, which is terrible. But so that was one of my experiences, and there's no hard fast rule on that. Do I say something to the guy? What do I do?
Socks are acceptable, right?
Socks are acceptable as long as you conduct as long as you do wudu. So some people will do. So it's ritual washing of your hands 3, and then you do your face. Then you do your mouth, your nose, your face, and then the arm from the elbow down to the wrist. Arm, elbow down the wrist, and one of the key things, and then your head, then your feet, and you've got to get water between your fingers and between your toes. So some people will do it, and they'll do it over the socks. I don't really know how that works. But again, everybody needs to sort of figure out how they want to be a good Muslim, and I'm not going to say that that's being bad. It's just
Sure.
a different interpretation. But yeah, so my recent experience, so we had the National Day of Prayer, and I was part of a multiple sort of festivities that had happened. And that were happening around the National Day of Prayer, and all kinds of other interesting sort of multi-faith activities. One was I was involved in my first prayer circle.
First evangelical prayer circle.
First evangelical prayer circle,
or at least Christian prayer circle, right?
Yeah. So I didn't, and so I was unaware of that it was going to happen. It was a surprise sort of jump in.
No one telegraphed it to you. It just kind of started happening.
Well, I was with a bunch of evangelicals that were really passionate about the day and what was happening, because it was a series of 3 or 4 days that everybody was getting together around the National Prayer Day, and there was a big events happening all over, and so John, you've been involved in interfaith for this amount of time, and really want to thank and bless you. And I said, okay. And I just thought it was going to be like a Catholic sort of, the sign of the cross, maybe a ring, the kissing. I don't know. Maybe there was going to be a little bit of that. I had no idea. But before I knew it, I was on my knees, and the pastor put her hands on my chest. And I sort of said, put me down, and I didn't know. First and foremost,
I didn't know what to do.
I said first and foremost, I was like, what's happening here? And then I'm kneeling, and I have a woman in front of me with her hands on my chest, and my breath is going into her cleavage.
Oh gosh!
So it's a very erotic moment, and I didn't know what to do with my hands. So do I?
All of a sudden, your personal bubble is being invaded. And
then I said to myself, where do my hands can't possibly go on her chest, right? So do I keep on my sides? And everyone started holding hands around me, and I go, am I going to get touched by everybody? So I was like, I don't know. So I just kind of went through it, and it was a very thoughtful sort of blessing and acknowledgement of who I am and some of the work that I've done. And it was great. I had a wonderful moment in time, but my New York instincts are it's like I don't breathe too hard into her dress, and try to not. It's not.
Where's this heading?
Well, that's the other thing. I said, I didn't want to commit a hate crime. Going, all right, we need to kind of wrap this up soon, But in the same respect, I'm on my knees, and everyone's lording over me. Hands are on my chest, and I'm sitting there going, does everybody get a shot at me? Does this happen? I don't know. So I'm part of a lot of sort of prayer calls where faith calls where we'll spend 20 minutes going through prayers on the front end and prayers on the back end, and we end up having 10 minutes to talk about the subject.
Not entirely foreign territory for you.
Right. So I didn't know if everybody was going to have a say or jump in. So that was my first sort of incident that happened. And it was nothing bad. It was I just was unaware in a moment's notice. We said, we're going to say a prayer. Okay. And then hands were on my chest, and I go, okay, what does that mean? And then I was like, maybe this is the laying of hands. I was like, am I being healed? So then I asked that afterwards. They're like, no, you weren't healed. And I'm like, what's that about? And they go, well, it's a really long, and there's certain moments where we have to really make sure that when it comes to evil, it's rooted out. And I go, I don't know what that means. What is that? Does that mean? And I was like, I don't know if I should ask the question. And of course, I'm going to ask you the question. Laying of hands. How invasive is that one?
Right.
So, but yeah, that was my first experience. That was new, and it wasn't. It was just. I was a little bit nervous about it, and there was a component about it where I just didn't know. I was disoriented, trying to figure out what would become next, rather than focusing on the words and what was going on.
Yeah.
Because it was a strange, one of those strange moments where you're trying to assess and respect and participate, but if you don't know how to participate, what do you do? So,
yeah. Well, it sounds like your reaction and participation was gracious and an otherwise awkward.
But now it's out. Now it's out.
Awkward. So, now it's out.
So that was the first incident. Yeah.
So to my Christian brothers and sisters, if you're interested in extending a prayer for or a blessing for or even laying on hands to a Muslim friend, give them a little heads up about what is about to happen, right? Just a little genial explanation about what is and what's not going to happen, right? That would be helpful.
I mean, it's lucky that I trusted everybody and everything else.
Sure.
I feel like our relationship between me and this pastor is elevated to a point where it was very personal, very in a weird, intimate. And I don't know, I was just like, but it was all normal to everyone. So when they left and everybody started going towards what, the ceremony function, whatever they were doing, I kind of was like, oh, well, are we all best friends now? What do we do now? We didn't exchange numbers. There was no dinner involved. So but it was a very thoughtful and acknowledgement of some of the work that I've done in our relationship and stuff like that. But there was a few moments there I kind of got nervous about where we were and what was going on. And then the second element was I've heard of I've interacted with some of the evangelical communities, but never had I been through. I don't think I've experienced a service, a real sort of evangelical service, and I don't know if the word Bible thumping. I don't know if it's pejorative or not. I've heard that before, but I never understood exactly what it was. Sure. So, And so I'd gone through, there was this sort of service. So we're here in this multi-faith national prayer sort of service and of all these activities that are going on. And the pastor got up and started saying this, really revving up the crowd, about, things are stated in the Bible and in this passage, and things are moving, and something was ordained at this point, and things were really evolving. And so I was there with a bunch of Muslims, and people were behind us going, "Amen," and yeah, and we're all a little bit going, where's this going? Right. Where's this going right now? Are we gonna, and are we part of the group? Or
right.
We start.
Or are they just talking past you?
Yeah. And I was excited because I was like, yeah, I'm revved up. I want to start. I want to turn over a table. I want to, charge a hill. And so we're all revved up. And then all of a sudden, this guy gets up there and he says, "You all know the words to this song," and starts strumming this song. And so my first thing is I was all revved up to do something. I wanted to, paint a house, eat some ice cream, charge a hill, do something as a group and go nuts, And then this guy comes in and starts playing the guitar and singing a song. But his first thing in this multi-faith component is, you all know the words to this song. You've all heard this before. And I'm like, no. And so he sings the song, and everybody was pointing to the sky, and everybody was pushing the sky.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. There's a lot. There's a lot of hands. Yeah. So in the motion, that motion of pushing the air, it's not a Muslim thing. There's a cultural thing where if someone comes in and we're having dinner and someone sort of pushes the air a little bit, and there's a guy and a girl that then you say, "Oh, are they fooling around?" So that's what it means. So I'm going
a little different context. Right?
So I'm like, clearly that's not what they're doing. It's clearly that has nothing to do with it. But some of us were looking around each other, kind of giggling a little bit. And then, but it was such a bipolar experience. We were motivated by the pastor to do something, and then on the other hand, there was this sort of mellow sort of petting with the music at the end, and I was going, why? We should be doing something. And then now that guy sort of calmed us down with his song, and of course the moment where he said, you all know this song, and it would have been nice if he said, this is a song that has to do with our relationship with God and Jesus, and breath of God, that sort of thing, because there was something about the breath in the line. And in the chorus, this is the or said, this is the chorus, and this is what it means. That would have been nice. But we were just in the middle of it, much like the prayer circle, and we right in the middle of it, and being respectful, but not knowing what's happening and around us.
So no objection necessarily to hearing a Christian song sung, but maybe a little more introduction for, say, the rabbis and the Hindus and the Muslims in the room, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't know what half the time what Joel Osteen is saying, but I do watch some of his stuff because he's so positive, So yeah, there was completely respectful to what's going on. And so anytime I feel bad, I'll turn on Joel Osteen, because whatever I'm doing, I'm doing it right. He's got a story. So and I don't know where he sits in evangelical circles and where it falls. All I know is that. So I'm not against Christian music or the sermon that was given. It would seem very bipolar as an observation. We were really hot and ready to roll, and then this guy's melling us out, and then and then we didn't know the song. We didn't know it.
You didn't know it.
And of course, if we don't know the words, we got to kind of, okay, it's a chorus, so we got to kind of hear the words. Am I hearing the words right?
Am I going to sing something? If I decide to sing along, am I going to sing something that conflicts with my own convictions? Right.
Right. Yeah. That song that says, "Give me the beat, boys, and sing my song." I thought for years it was "Give me the Beach Boys." I had no idea. So I don't want to. I commit a hate crime singing the wrong words now.
Right.
This has been Crossing Phase with John Pinna and Matt Hawkins, a podcast of Rolltop Productions. You can continue the conversation with us if you dare on Twitter via @MTHawk, @JTPinna, and @CrossingPhase. Love it or hate it, we'd appreciate your review of our program wherever you glean your favorite podcasts, especially in the iTunes Store. Music for this episode is provided courtesy Vajra. Show notes and an assortment of other information is available at crossingphase.com.